It was the last stretch of Texas highway that always hit me hardest, That sun-blasted Tulane slicing through cedar brush. Wind so dry it felt like it could peel your skin. Coming home always started with that silence. Just me and the road and whatever waited at the end. 9 months gone, 2 rotations overseas, more miles than I cared to count. Every minute I'd been dreaming about seeing the faded red front door of my little house, the old oak tree out front that I planted with my own hands years ago, expecting it to outgrow me by now. I bought that place outright after my second re-enlistment. Wasn't Mooch's single story, big porch, couple acres just outside Oakage Creek Estates. No, HOA, and I made sure it stayed that way. Filed every exemption, kept copies of county records, backed it all up in a folder thick enough to stop a bullet. I wasn't about to let some clipboard committee tell me how high to cut my grass or when to fly my flag. Before deployment, I buttoned everything down power of attorney to my old squad buddy Greg. Security system top to bottom, cameras, remote access, the works. Greg checked in regular, and the property was supposed to be secure. But when I pulled off the highway that day, bone-tired after 36 hours of flights and waiting rooms, what I saw knocked the wind right out of me. The house was gone. Not just the house, the porch, the shed, the oak tree, everything. Nothing left but torn-up dirt and tire tracks deep as wounds, bulldozer ruts slashed across the lot. Like somebody peeled back the land and left it to rot in the sun. There, staked at the edge of the drive, was a sign, Future Development, Oakage Creek Phase 3 Expansion. For a second, I honestly thought I'd gotten the address wrong or was so strung out I was seeing things, but the GPS was dead on, the old street sign hadn't moved. This was my land, my home. I stepped out and just stood there, boots sinking in the dirt where my porch used to be. Not angry yet, not even really processing. Just blank, like standing in a crater. You ever lose something so completely your brain just refuses to believe it? That's where I was. I spotted something sticking out from under the gravel-me old no trespassing sign, bent and spray painted over with HOA logos in red. That's when my breathing changed. I got in the truck, grabbed my folder, and called the sheriff. He rolled up pretty quick, a young deputy, polite, taking everything in. I handed him everything. License, military orders, pictures of the house, bank statements, even Greg's drone shots from 3 months back, house and tree and all. Kid flipped through it, slower and slower. "Sir, this was here less than 90 days ago." "I'm telling you it was," I said flat. And it didn't walk away. A detective showed up, started snapping pictures, dust hanging in the air. I walked the perimeter, looking for anything, even a scrap, but it was like they'd surgically erased me from the place. Greg pulled off his face, said it all. "Jesus, Buck. I was just here in May. Everything was fine. In June, gate was chained, had an HOA sticker. I figured you'd change the locks. They never owned this land," I said, staring at the spot where my bedroom was, where my gun safe had been bolted to the slab. Everything inside metals, photos, the old watch my dad gave me before my first tour gone. That night, Greg and I dug into the camera backups. Most were wiped. But Greg, being Greg, had stashed a spare drive in his basement. We plugged it in. The files were there, except for the motion alerts from June and July. Deleted deliberately. "Want to try recovery?" he asked. I just nodded. 2 days later, I walked into the Oakage Creek HOA office, boots still caked in their dirt. I wasn't mad, just cold. Walked in like I learned in uniform, calm and scanning for threats. The receptionist, Cheryl, little plastic name tag, barely looked up before hurrying off. Out came Karen Ramsey, HOA president, in a white blazer, clipboard, smile sharp enough to shave with. "Mr. Howard, we weren't expecting you." "I bet." She ushered me into a conference room, wall full of plaques, manila folder with my name misspelled on it. She started in, saying the HOA followed procedure. The property was marked as abandoned, adjacent to the community, eligible for redevelopment. "You tore down a registered home on land never under your jurisdiction," I said deadpan. She slid over a laughable inspection, report no county seal, just a scrawl from an environmental safety consultant. Claims about fire risk, dereliction. I raised an eyebrow. My friend checked in every month. Lawn was mowed. Security worked. How'd your inspector get in? She flipped to photos taken from the street. You're not authorized to inspect. This isn't your land, I shot back. Then she slid another doc, a supposed land surrender agreement, signed by someone I never heard of. This signature's not mine. This is fraud. Karen just folded her hands and smiled like a school principal. We acted under the assumption the property had been vacated. You mean you mailed notices to a house you were bulldozing? I said, standing up. You'll hear from my lawyer and the JAG office. That afternoon, I drove to the county office. No record of any ordinance letting the HOA claim my land. My lot was always independent. Rage settled into something cold and heavy. I called Greg. They faked everything, reports, signatures, you name it. Time to go military, he said. Document, record, counterattack. No, we dig deeper. If they did it to me, I bet they've done it before. 3 days later, Arthur Harper, old HOA board member, knocks on my door, Tupperware in hand, sad grandpa face on. Heard about your place, son. Hell of a thing. I served in Nam. Never thought I'd see this here. Greg once called them the HOA's pet turtles low, mostly harmless. Now he wanted to help, slid a thumb drive across my table. Meeting notes, you didn't get these from me. I thanked him, but I didn't trust it for a second. Greg and I dug into the files, looked official, but all metadata wiped, file names off like copies of copies. It's bait, Greg said. But for what? I checked the board list. Arthur was getting consulting payments off the books. He's not just a turtle, he's a scout. We sent him a little digital message to let him know we weren't playing. Next day, he left a shaky voicemail. Didn't mean harm, you don't know how deep this goes. Oh, I knew. The HOA wasn't just some nosy neighbor outfit. It was a machine structure, insiders, money flowing where it shouldn't. Karen was the front, Arthur the shadow. There were more. We expanded our search. Greg on the cyber, Jay building a timeline from public server email headers, Rickson drafting legal complaints, not just civil, but federal RICO statutes. We weren't just after my house. We were taking the whole rotten operation apart. Then came the setup a community forum, Karen's invitation, laced with talk of recent security incidents involving military veterans. I showed up late, arms crossed, Karen doing her best theater act about the danger of unstable veterans. Camera rolling, her assistant filming. She tried to bait me, but I kept calm, just asked for evidence she had none. Greg stood up, played back a video of Karen rehearsing her fake concern, laughing about it. The room flipped. The clip went viral. Veterans groups and news outlets jumped on it. Karen tried to spin, but nobody was buying it. After that, we went undercover. Greg used an old shell company, pitched a bid for their next expansion. We got inside, and Karen handed over confidential docs lists of reclamation-eligible properties. Elderly veterans, folks away from medical care, all targeted because they were unlikely to fight back. My lot marked cleared. My belongings auctioned for community improvement. They weren't just stealing land, they were hunting people who couldn't defend themselves. We filed the lawsuit under the Service Members Civil Relief Act, plus fraud, property destruction, conspiracy. The case went federal, evidence a mile deep, timeline, records, security footage, even Karen's voice selling my father's watch and brother's ashes like they were junk. The jury didn't blink. Guilty on every count. $3 million in damages, $1 million in punitive. Karen fined personally for selling my military memorabilia. But it didn't stop there. Right after the verdict, the feds slapped Karen with a criminal indictment: wire fraud, destruction of property, falsifying docs, obstruction. They cuffed her in court. That sound I'll never forget. She just stared ahead like she was still waiting for someone else to solve it for her. A year later, I stood barefoot on new cedar planks, sun on my face, house rebuilt by friends and neighbors and a handful of stubborn vets. We were the crew. Greg ran security. Jay handled the wiring. Rickson made sure the paperwork was tighter than ever. The flag flew higher than before. Underneath it, I bolted a steel plaque to the new foundation: never abandon a soldier. Take it to court instead. We grilled, told stories, played country music until someone switched it to AC/DC. Folks I'd never met brought cobbler, even some from Oakage Creek, now ex-HOA, wanted to make amends. Karen? Last I heard, she took a plea, 5 years probation, banned from anything with the words homeowners or board. Her old place? Auction off. I drove by once slow. No lights, no roses. Some ghosts. You just leave right where they are. Now, I want to know, what would you have done? Was justice served? Drop a comment. Share your take. Tell me where you're watching from. Let's talk about what real community means, because sometimes the only way to get it back is to fight for it all the way.